Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Are the Game over here at Cabot Crossing. And this is a show where us three game masters combine our experiences in tabletop role-playing games to share some tips, some tricks, and do a little debating. And today's idea, this is a response video brought up by Woody. What are we responding to today?
Well, we have been doing a lot of response videos to Professor Dungeon Master, but I've also enjoyed Baron DeRop's content. He has a YouTube channel where he kind of like started out doing. He's a not good lord, suddenly I can't think of the term, but he's a geopolitical specialist, and so he was applying the subject of geopolitics to RPGs, and I found those very fascinating. How he broke that down. How different geographical terrain features and conditions would affect the development of cultures, and it's neat because it's something that we tend not to think about. You know, hey, my alarm just went off. Okay, I am going to turn that off right now because Okay, that's okay. Good, we're off. Okay. Anyways, so but he does do other topics, and one of the topics he did recently was discussing dungeon design, which got my attention because I hate it passionately. And what he was going into was that there were three areas of like dungeon design that are extremely well developed and copied throughout the video game industry. And he was thinking that these three areas could actually be really helpful in designing dungeons from our perspective as game masters, because it can be very tedious, it can be very difficult, and frequently you'll be designing this dungeon and there's like logical things that need to be there, like a cistern or a place for people to eat, because these are ancient ruins, and it's like it's a lot to think about all these things, and so this actually is an interesting, very compelling way to think about how to create a dungeon that's more interesting for the players. Doesn't necessarily get into all that stuff, but anyways, when do you guys want to start off? Because I trust we've all seen the video.
What was the first? I already forgot the first one was.
Well, the first one was dealing with platformers, but it was more like not so much platformers, but like a sequential elevation of.
So that was
content.
Really interesting to me. I had never thought about that, actually, that you can introduce in your dungeons the same thing in rooms, but have it progressively more complicated. So I remember there was like crossing the plank in some way. You're like, okay, it's not a hard thing to do. It's a thing that you see a lot. And then the next room, you have to cross two planks, and there's like this gas coming out or something, and it's complicating like a solution you've already had to build on it and stuff.
Yeah, it's cool. like your dungeon design is teaching the players how to overcome the dungeon and setting them up for the next for the next step of it. Which it's an interesting idea.
I've never done it. It's definitely interesting.
Yeah, I think it could be cool. I wouldn't do it as much as like in video games do. I wouldn't do it too many times in a row, but you could build up 2 or 3 times.
You can do it multiple times in a row too, if you make it not obvious that that's what it is. Like for instance, we did a dungeon with the Drakenheim campaign by the Dungeon Dudes, and there's one in there where you have to like light comes out of a statue and you have to reflect the light, right? The first time you figure out that the light's coming out and can be reflected is actually kind of a hard puzzle. But then once you get it, you start seeing it in different places. You're like, oh, I know what to do with that. But then you have to realize, oh, but I have to go find more mirrors. And now you're getting into his key thing, like from Zelda, right? Now the mirrors become the keys, right? And so it was kind of interesting to where you are going back and forth in dungeon, looking for keys, which are mirrors to reflect light, which you figured out how to do right. And then it's using all those same concepts when you think about it, but you wouldn't think it's those concepts because it's not obvious, right?
Yeah, it's the lock and key, which is the third one.
Yeah. Well, what kind of got me with that idea of the escalating level of dungeon design and the, like basically teaching you how to overcome all the obstacles as you go, was that like in looking at that. Well, one, like not every game has done it. Like it's just simply, he was referring to Super Mario as the example of it, but like it never even occurred to me that that's what the games were doing until he started describing it.
Yeah, it's like tutorial almost.
Yeah, because I go back to one of the games in that era that I really enjoyed was the one that was based on the Batman movie, the one with Keaton and Jack Nicholson. And that game, of course, had nothing to do with the movie, but it was a fun. It was a fun game, and you were generally able to do really well up to like the third boss, in which case you were never going to get any further than that. But there was no escalation in those. It was just every level was just designed the way they were, and it wasn't like you were learning new techniques that got you set up for later levels. It just
that's why Mario Brothers is a classic and still going around.
Yeah, and nobody's ever heard of this Batman bullshit that I'm talking about.
But you're listening again.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember the movie.
Yeah, but it is an interesting thing because he talks about it
was Batman Beyond, I think, right?
Yeah, Batman Beyond was good. Yeah, but there's points where he talks about how and that's one of the interesting that kind of got me is there was he talks about having traps in a room that there's a way to turn them off. And then you're teaching the players the idea to look for those levers. And it's an interesting idea because obviously the people building those traps want to be able to get past them without getting caught by their own trap. But then to have it be so obvious that there always will be a way to turn them off. I don't know. I'm kind of in the middle on that one, because
I mean, if you own a dungeon, you want to, you might want to come visit occasionally. You might want to be able to turn traps off.
Exactly. But we'll see. What was interesting about this topic was that only one of those ideas for me actually kind of inherently felt like organic dungeon design, right? Because when you're dealing with like a game like Mario Brothers, Super Mario, right? It's a video game. You're playing something that doesn't reflect reality, right? So it's a fun challenge. You're trying to overcome. You're learning the challenge, and they designed it to be. It can be overcome, right? But when you're dealing with these dungeon scenarios, they either were set up specifically to keep people out, which there's nothing reflecting real life in any of this, or it is simply it just turned out that way because it's a post-apocalyptic scenario, and you're just in this place that just got this is just what was left over, and it's decaying, and that's the part of the danger is it's a crumbling ruin full of creatures that have moved into it.
Yeah, you can do something organic like that.
Yeah, and so in that regard, this concept of dungeon design, where you build the dungeon to be overcome and to teach people how to overcome it, is not an example of that plausibility. It actually violates the suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, I suppose to some degree. I think you have
unless you're playing Dungeon Crawler Carl, right? Mm-hmm. So in that game, which is coming up, there's a role-playing game coming up. Yeah. That would be very fitting for it because it is a game within a game.
Yeah. But that is one of the few scenarios where it would make sense to do it.
Yeah, that's why I was I think that's cool, the progression thing, but you got to be careful, like you say, Greg, don't make it too obvious. And I think you wouldn't want to repeat it too much because then it's that works in a video game, but in a role-playing game, you're like, oh my God, why do they have 50 levels of progression of this thing? Yeah. Unless at the end you're like, we wanted to make you a master at dodging fire traps.
I think it's okay if you can make it a bit organic. Like for instance, I think what he was talking about in dungeon design, he wasn't talking about any type of realistic reason that those rooms are like that or what those rooms are for even. And it really was like video game puzzle type thing, right? Yeah. And that's okay. I think if you were to take those methods and then come up with a monastery layout, let's say, which has the rooms along the side, it has the center courtyard that you could go through.
Well, if I may, we're kind of getting ahead because we're now you're getting into a one of the three types we haven't even discussed yet.
Oh, yeah, true. Yeah. I guess to go back to the repeating one, I'm saying you could have a realistic something. It's called a monastery. I don't care how the monastery looks inside, but you actually do have to come up with reasons for each of the rooms type thing.
Yeah.
But then you can put natural disasters that just happen to be in that way. And I don't think it would be too obvious or too dumb to be okay, you have to jump across a chasm here. Okay, the next room, there's two chasms because of how it's kind of split out and the earthquake happened. And at the same time, there's these things over there shooting at you while you're trying to do it,
So this is the monastery on the Death Star is what you're talking about.
Yeah, basically. No, I mean, as I say, it's a monastery out in the desert that went through a hurricane a earthquake or something, right? You could probably make it natural. But either way, you can't take away from the fact that in D&D, you have to come up with it can't just be a bunch of empty rooms. You have to actually come up with reasons for those rooms, right?
Totally. So you were just talking about the 3 lanes one, Greg.
I played too much League of Legends.
Well, this is one actually that I thought was more compelling, but it again, like, may not work with, like, dungeon design, but like it seems like it might be more fitting for like a cave system, right? But the idea being that you have like not as describing as in detail as he did, but you basically have 3 different ways to reach a particular objective at the end of the map. And then there's like side passages where you can cut back, between them, and each one has a different kind of play style and way to defeat it. And that is wonderful from the standpoint of like giving players agency and the ability to like pick their path. But then you're also investing a lot of time in creating something that nobody's ever going to see. They're only going to take one route, and you've spent a lot of time in these other rooms, and nothing's going to come of it unless other people are going to play the same dungeon. Like if you're running it at a con, right? Or
I don't know. Like I would say one of the best dungeon designers right now, dungeons, is probably Kelsey Dion, and I could see where you don't usually.
She loves doing it.
Yeah, she does that. She does that all the time.
Yeah.
You usually have multiple entrances into the dungeon, and so
I actually do think you have to design dungeons or buildings, mansions, caves, whatever you're doing. You have to design them in a way that is somewhat real, in the sense that they're concrete. They're like you can live within it in terms of like going through it as a player. You have the sounds, the smells, what you see, the decay, the life of whoever lived in there, the remnants of that, right? Like you want that lore in all the rooms you go to. But and then after you have that, that's like important, number one. And then after you do that, you can think of, well, how can there be puzzles in here? How can there be like this room would obviously be locked for whatever reason. So how can I make it so you have to go find how to unlock that room from another room, right?
And you have to get to that room to progress over here.
Right. And that's where kind of like those concepts can come into play, perhaps, is after you've already established a thing that you want with what you need for lore and story and all that, how can you use these tips to navigate to that final part where they need to get to?
Well, when he was talking about the 3 lanes, he was mainly mentioning 2 particular examples. One was Call of Duty, and the other one was, as you mentioned, League of Legends, right? And these work really well because you're in these skirmish games, right? Like if you're playing Battlefield, it could very well be like this as well. Or they probably don't do it in Helldivers, because Helldivers is just chaos. But like the thing is that you have like you have an objective over here. You have to get to it, and each of these like routes can be taken as all they're set up differently for different kinds of gameplay, and that works really well in terms of like a skirmish match, right? But then the example he gives in his video talks about the evil overlord, and then you have to get to the dungeon to raid his tomb.
Yeah,
there's all these different things in between, and like he goes out of his way to present it in a way that this makes sense. He's described this to be a badass dungeon to overcome.
Yeah.
But it would never be that way in actuality. Yeah. You say real life, but that's not how the traps would actually be set up.
Actually, in real life,
Yeah, well, in real life, there were never.
Where are the outhouses in this dungeon? Where are they pooping at?
Well, like there is a basic plausibility that has to be there, and again, that scenario, though fun and would be great from the player's perspective. Yeah, we beat this thing; that'd be great. But at the same time, like again, it isn't plausible. Right.
Yeah. Is it plausible to have 3 lanes, or isn't plausible how design?
Well, the 3-lane thing is a great dungeon design, but it isn't. And what he was describing is not a plausible way for it to happen.
Yeah,
unless the conditions evolved after the tomb was set up, or he put his tomb in a cave, and the natural cave system is the defense.
I don't think he was trying to make it like plausible in that way. He was just trying to like turn it into the same type of puzzle, but for dungeons.
Oh, and I agree. He was not trying to go for plausibility. It's just for me, like I think about the player's experience too, because I've had situations for me where I go into this thing and the GM thinks it's like, this is a great idea, it's gonna be cool, right? And I'm looking at this going, no, it doesn't work for me, and I've done the same thing to my players. Exactly, and I've had my players question my own suggestions too, and I'm like, oh, because
you have to make something up on the fly.
Yeah, exactly.
It looked like it may have been a dining hall at some point, but the table's been thrown aside.
Yeah, exactly. But the one that I actually liked the best was his lock and key one, which you just mentioned a moment ago, Marks, was the idea that you have that the dungeon's set up to, in order to progress, you have to, get into this room or find something that removes a barrier in some way, right? And that feels way more organic and natural in a lot of ways to me.
I agree, because that's natural too. Obviously, there would be rooms locked and maybe even magic, right?
Yeah, and the key to what you need is behind this one door. Like in the video game KOTOR, you're breaking into a Sith base, and if you don't make it all the way, if you don't get every door open, you'll be arrested and executed. and it's one of the secret endings to the game that you get electrocuted because you violated the law, but they put you to death. But it's like, in
spoilers.
order to spoilers, exactly. But in order to progress the game, you have to get through these doors, and you have to find like evidence and get like information in this room to be able to hack the computer over here, right? And so that is,
like was mentioned by whomever, I can't remember who mentioned it from an episode 2 ago, just make sure those keys aren't too hard to find.
Yeah, exactly. But that aspect of it, I think, like, and maybe the right answer is actually a combination of all these aspects, right? Because there is no one perfect design, but it just, like I think the lock and key design, which I think he said is very popular with the Zelda games, feels way more plausible to me as a way to design it.
Yeah, and I think 3 lanes maybe just don't have one path only. At least not all dungeons. Maybe some make sense for one path, but just because then your players feel like they're railroaded. Like, guess we're going this room next. Guess we're going that room next, because it's obviously it's the only room they go into.
Nice, Greg. Yeah. Well, part of the reason why I was thinking of this one is because I've been recently working on an adventure module that we're going to have later in the year for sale, and there is a dungeon in it, and I ended up making I think 4 different ways to enter the dungeon or something, and which means there's other ways to go through, and there's actually a way you can go.
Breaks the 3-lane thing.
Yeah, exactly. But I was building an ancient ruin.
3-lane plus 1.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I was creating a building that used to be a crumbling ruin. It's a crumbling ruin, right? And so I was built around where different things were going to be, and then there would be other ways into the building, right? So, but there's also, it turns out, there is a way to get into the building where you can skip almost every obstacle and go straight to the final treasure. And
that's funny.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think first and foremost, you got to get the lore, the what it is. You got to get what it is first, and then after that, you can try to think about these video game things. I think the lock and key is probably one of the best ones. The 3-lane one can work in some cases, I think, but it's not going to be like he did, where it's like there's a random cave, and at the end of it, there's a random shield with the bad guy behind it, and you have to go to these random passages for some reason to go touch something, right? It's like, it's never going to be like that. It's going to be something more natural.
Each room has a reward waiting for you. You know it's going to be there, so if you can get to this room, you get something to be able to progress.
Yeah.
Well,
so
I
magic mushrooms. That's what you get, just like Mario.
I think you're absolutely right, because the idea of the post-apocalyptic setting is at the core of our concept of fantasy RPGs, because virtually every one of them, particularly when you got dungeon crawls, deals with the idea there's a past civilization that failed, and we're picking at their bones.
This is why they failed. They couldn't get through their own dungeons.
They got too many lanes.
Yes.
What the heck is so? You get lost in your own home.
Yeah. But all of these structures that our players are going through were once thriving locations that were active and used regularly, right?
Yeah.
By some civilization, and so these are. It's weird that they're always underground.
Yeah.
But it is.
I will say, you can make scenarios where these things make sense, but the scenarios that make sense are when they're explicitly puzzles for you to get through, and set up to be that way. For instance, like some crazy mad mage made it, or something like that, or someone's testing you some way. Or if you've ever played, what's that game with Dragon Age, where you go through the dream sequence and you have to learn. It's just like the Mario thing, where you learn skills over time, and then you can get further and further in the game by learning how the skills work and use them more. Stuff like that. So there are ways you can make them work in a more abstract way, but in general, you got to make the place makes sense before you start putting in puzzles.
Yes. Well, that also kind of reflects our own world in a way too, because there are places in this world where actual like D&D style dungeons do exist.
They're called escape rooms.
Well, no, I mean there are ancient ruins like this, like in Turkey.
Yes.
Yeah, because it was in Turkey where the guy was working on his basement and he went through the wall and found an ancient city under his house. And
Jesus Christ!
Have you not heard of this?
No.
Well, so apparently there was a culture, I think it was in Turkey, where they had built an entire city underground, and they abandoned it for some reason. No, I mean I'm not sure it's really well understood, but this thing was very much like a D&D style dungeon, and he just found it while working on his basement, and a whole city had grown up above it. Nobody knew it was there, right?
Yeah.
And this thing is expansive. They've got underground chapels. They've got rooms for people to live. They've got places to take a dump. I mean, it's like it's got everything.
Need those.
Yeah, yeah. And it had been abandoned thousands of years ago. And
the first Minecraft.
Yeah, exactly. And so these things really exist. And supposedly the complexity of the tomb of the first emperor of China is like that too, but we don't know. Like, nobody will go in there, but supposedly there's like rivers of mercury in there and all these crazy things. Yeah,
who knows? It's China.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think they don't want to enter the tomb because for fear of damaging it at this point. But
yeah. It would
like
be damaged.
Yeah, but
do TikTok and damage it.
Yeah. The only difference is these actual locations don't have monsters.
You'd be like, kids, drink from the mercury in here. Do TikTok trend.
Well, and we even have something like this in Seattle here because there's actually a city on top of a city in Seattle. We have an underground city in Seattle, like kind of like in France, but not nearly as expansive.
Bloodsport, they the movie Bloodsport, where they're going through like it's almost like between alleys and stuff of really dark alleys that's completely covered. That place was actually really dangerous, and they were very lucky they didn't get anything stolen or got hurt during those filming, apparently. And that it's actually been completely demolished and replaced now because it was so dangerous.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. So they exist in real life.
Yeah.
So off camera, Woody, you told us that there was a response,
oh my God, you're going to
scolding response or whatever about this.
Yes. Well, that's kind of what we're doing. I actually didn't get to finish the video, unfortunately, but what happened was that Branderop had put this video out, and then another guy that does YouTube videos immediately responded and completely disputed it. And then rather than getting upset about it, he brought the guy on to have a conversation. And I think the guy was taking the kind of a similar viewpoint that I do, where, these are interesting ideas, but they also it doesn't reflect, as Greg was saying, the actual practicalities of why these structures are built in the first place. Because they, and again, I did not get a chance to see his video or the conversation, but just the part that I kind of got that's where they were going with it. But because these structures exist for a reason. They don't exist for you to have a challenge to overcome. I mean, they could, but they don't.
These things can be useful if you can find a way to incorporate them. But for instance, it could be very much like you start to make a mansion that you're going through, and you realize, there's going to be a place that I don't want them to get to the end. Okay. Now we're starting to talk about the puzzle, right? Now we can talk about how that percolates and maybe use some of these concepts. But it can't just be like, I'm going to make a mansion and I'm going to design it with 3 lanes. And at the end, in the middle lane, is going to be like a force field. No, you can't do that.
Well, I think for me, where I thought this was an interesting and very compelling topic of discussion, is because given that the genesis of this show was, sharing the knowledge of how to be a game master with people that are brand new to the hobby, right? Because we're in this, they're in a time where there's more people than ever trying to jump in and participate. But the thing is that I know I'm not the only one that finds the creation of dungeons tedious and frustrating. And sorry, what was that?
I do too. Here's how my dungeons usually are. There's one room, and then another room, and then the final room.
Even less than 5 dungeons.
That makes a lot of sense, Greg. Having played with you, but the thing about it is having a framework as a starting point, at least having something as a structure going. Hey, here's an idea that could be to get you started and get some ideas flowing on it. is extremely helpful, right? And
I think they're cool ideas that can be tools you can think about to integrate into it. And also, I think the idea of using video game design to help inspire, get some ideas to help out with your role-playing game, tabletop role-playing game designs is a good thing. I like
if there's one good advice I can give on this whole thing is when you make a place and you're going to make some puzzle around the place, it's very tempting to make every room its own little domain with its own little puzzles. It's not great to do that. It's much better to have the whole place be an overall puzzle that you're solving in some way. So, for instance, you are trying to find that key to the final room, and it integrates with all the other stuff you're doing everywhere else, right? You don't want to make it so you go into here, and there's 3 pillars. You have to put something on 3, and then you go into this room, and there's like a lever with some disc on it. You have to move the disc, right? You don't want it to just be like a little puzzle in every room you go, right? You want it to make it like some actual theme, which these kind of concepts can help with, I suppose.
I think with the one I was working on, like the dungeon itself is kind of divided into kind of like sectors, right? And so like you'll have clusters rooms over here, and they all kind of like lead to like a major kind of like a big significant encounter. And so there's like treasures to find. There's like little puzzles and things to encounter. And the thing I was trying to fill it with like a thing where there's murals and like writing, and there's a way to maybe decipher this stuff and actually understand the history.
I've done that too. Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to go a little more deeper into it, but when you really deal with it, like it's broken up into like just like 3 or 4 major zones, and each major zone has a primary encounter in it, and then there may be a few other little creatures, but it's really like just a few basic encounters that you're dealing with, and then you can defeat an area. And you've conquered that area, but there's other areas that still need to be dealt with, and you can encounter them in kind of any order you want. You're not really on a path, right?
You know what's funny? When I design dungeons, I often do the mural thing, especially if there's like reasons to have that kind of thing, and I'll just say mural, and then the next room I'll say like mural, and then when I actually get to running it, I'm like, oh yeah, the mural says this and this, and I kind of pay attention. I'm like, did they get what I was saying? No. Okay. Next mural, I'm just gonna like expand on it more, right? I like make them dynamic to be what I need.
Well, in this case, kind of the scenario deals with like a group of characters are just regular civilian people that stumble upon the dungeon adventure, and they have to do it. So but they're going in without armor, and they're going in with limited weapons, and so like obviously the dungeon was kind of built around this idea of like these people are a little more vulnerable. Right. So you don't need like the intensity of combat that you might get in a D&D dungeon,
Yeah. I have a Dark Sun, Dark Sun campaign that we can do with Shadow Dark. And it's that same concept. You're kind of forced to go into a dungeon and deal with it. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. And part of the idea being as you go, like, you can, these characters can find stuff. And so the stuff I'm populating with it is intended to kind of like make it so that they can be able to progress. And in actuality, like a lot of what I'm describing is probably very much along the line of, these, unintentionally, some of these techniques that were being discussed in the video. Because it was a scenario built around like very specific characters. But, if you were to take that same dungeon and put some D&D characters into it, the experience would be very different. I mean, it would still work, but they'd be way more aggressive about how they proceed.
Yeah.
Well, shoot! Right. I think we got an episode.
What was this about again? Oh yes,
dungeon design.
Dungeon design response video. Yes.
Yeah.
Because we can't always just be picking on Professor Dungeon Master.
It was a very good video. Go watch it.
Yeah. But it's like it isn't the answer to everything. It's just it's useful information. I think it's very valuable. And I think it can give a lot of good inspiration. But I wouldn't just whole cloth say this is how to do it. No.
Keep it in your back pocket.
And I don't think that Baron DeRopp was actually saying that would be either. I think he's just like
I don't think so. He was just trying to translate the video game ideas into like a basic dungeon or something like that.
Yeah. Give us the way he did it. Basic example.
And they would be fun dungeons. If you can get around the fact that they're not plausible, they would be a lot of fun to try to fight your way through.
Well, it's like something of the Mad Mage. I forget that campaign name, but something of the Mad Mage. Anyways, you're basically going through a mad, crazy mage who set up all this crap for you to go through, right? So there you go. Use it there.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, that's it for this episode. Let us know in the comments your tips for dungeon design, or or if you try out or have tried out these concepts like 3-lane, lock and key, and platformers.
Or do you like that YouTuber we're talking about? Because it's the first time I ever watched him.
He has a lot of really fun videos, Greg. You should take a deeper dive into that one.
I've seen a few of his videos.
Yeah.
He's always very well dressed too.
Yes, he is.
Nice.
Yeah, and he has that PBS music at the end of the video where like a Masterpiece Theater.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let us know in the comments what you think, and share it. Feel free to share any stories. Let's make it a conversation, and please don't forget to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. We'll make some more videos. And until next time, have fun in your dungeon.
Keep delving. Keep dungeoneering.
When the dice roll high, we touch the sky, but when they crash, it's a belly laugh. Genre